Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Anarka Akaza here. So, as most vinyl collectors and vinyl junkies know, you never know what you're gonna find in the dollar bin. You know, you're digging through there, looking through all the rock and roll and stuff, and suddenly you find something in the dollar bin for one measly dollar that blows your mind into smithereens. It happens all the time, trust me. However, that can also happen at your local antique store. I went to the local antique store yesterday, went down in the basement, was crate digging, found some 60s, 70s, and 80s rock, you know, some Beatles, some Rolling Stone, just random artists and stuff. But none of that really caught my attention. What did catch my attention was this. I present to you elect Beeny, Lieutenant Governor of Missouri, Democrat. Yeah, it's two 30-minute pieces. On side A is the reality of a communist revolution and how to survive. And side B is obviously true confessions of a former communist. Now, I paid $1 for this because I absolutely had to have it. I mean, just look at it. The cover here, that's taped on. That's not printed. That is taped on there. This record looks like, I mean, it's gotta be from the mid to late 60s because I did look at Dr. Bill Beeny up, and apparently he ran for that position in 1968 and lost tragically with less than 2% of the vote. Oh dear. Which, after you listen to this, you could probably understand why he lost tragically. But anyway, I mean, just read that. I don't need to explain to you how this record is, because that right there explains it all. That explains the front and the back. But I looked into Mr. Beeny because I was interested. I even called him even Hollywood because, you know, I call some record stores occasionally to get information. They've never heard of him before. So I did research, and it turns out that he's done some broadcasts that were recorded to vinyl and some CD and cassettes, whatever. Some of them go for hundreds of dollars. I can't find anything on this. The only clues I can find about how to get this is right here. Order from Bill Beeny, Box 162, St. Louis, Missouri, price $3.98. Which, that's a lot for a record back in the 60s, you know? That's a lot back then. However, Mr. Beeny, throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and up to this present day, which I don't think he does it much anymore, but throughout his life, he hasn't just been an activist against communism. He hasn't just tried his very best to prepare young Christian America against the evils, the Negro, the evil international communist conspirators. Oh no, they're gonna take over the United States of America. We must prepare ourselves quick. Get your bomb shelters, get your candles. They're gonna throw Molotov cocktails and burn your houses down. They're gonna take over. And he gets all into it just like that. 30 minutes of it. He goes into the Bible and he makes several references as to how the revolution and the insurrection in the streets is going to be the end times. He's one of them people who also, you know, spent the majority of his life trying to prove that Elvis is still alive. You know, if I'm trying to take serious about some sort of communist revolution, don't start spitting at me how Elvis Presley is still alive. Oh my goodness, this guy, he went so far to I don't know if he has it in 2017, but apparently he has an Elvis is Alive museum, which I think he either closed it down or sold it because of old age. He said that he couldn't run it anymore, but he wrote a book about how Elvis is still alive because of DNA. Guy's a real nut job. But that's honestly why I had to own this. Which, let me please state, this vinyl record right here has absolutely nothing to do with him and his obsession with Elvis Presley. I just wanted to make that clear so nobody gets confused. This has to do with communism. So you might be wondering to yourselves why on earth I would take the time out of my day to go to an antique store and spend $1 on a 1968 political propaganda piece against communism and a so-called communist revolution in America by a religious right-wing nutjob Baptist church leader who also is obsessed with Elvis and believes he's still alive. Because that's entertainment, my people. That's entertainment.
and how to survive. Now, this message that I have today is not a message that I enjoy bringing, but a needful one. A surgeon who cuts deeply into the body of his patient, I am sure, does not enjoy the operation, but he knows the operation is necessary if the patient is to survive. If America is to survive, then we must make adequate preparations by the operation of survival. Reading in the book of Isaiah, the 26th chapter and the 20th verse, God warns his people concerning survival. He says this, "Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast." What's God saying here? He says, "Come, my people, get into your chambers." The word chamber in the Hebrew means your house or your shelter. Shut your doors about you. Lock yourself in other words. Hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment. In other words, for whatever time is necessary for survival, until the indignation be overpast. Now, we all know what the word indignation means. Indignation means a time of trouble, a time of pestilence, a time of turmoil. God said, be prepared in event of a time of turmoil that you can be spared of the awful indignation. All through God's Word, the Bible has always warned his people in hours of great calamity. Remember, God warned Noah to prepare an ark, and the Bible says in Hebrews 11 that Noah, being warned by God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear and prepared an ark unto the saving of his house. The Americans that are wise, the Christians that are wise, will prepare today in order that they and their household might be prepared in an hour of international communist conspiracy, in an hour when they will endeavor to take over America by the means of revolution. Now, my friends, only a fool, only an uninformed person would say that revolution could not happen here. And yet I believe this is the greatest enemy of the American people. This lethargy that says, oh well, it couldn't happen here. This is deadly. This will lead to ultimate destruction. We not only need to recognize the reality of revolution, but my friend, we need to do something about it. The strategic placing of hardcore trained communists into responsible position, and then in the hour of the revolution to strike America as though it were an electric joke. Benjamin Gitlow, giving testimony before a congressional committee, admitted that while he was head of the Communist Party USA, that the communists planned to use Negroes who had become disenchanted with the American way of life, to use them as the shock troops in the hour of the communist revolution. I believe this testimony by former communists should not be taken lightly, as long as they can get dupes and stooges to carry out their bidding. Now, my friends, what would really happen if a communist revolution were to hit your city, your county, or your area? What is the communist plan? Well, the plan has been revealed by many former communist agents. First, the electricity of a major city or county would be attacked. The revolution possibly taking place at night, as this would be a greater advantage. When the revolution hits, the lights would suddenly go out, just as they did in Watts. This means that families would be in darkness, and many would be thrown into panic and hysteria. This means that elevators and streetcars would not run. It also means that you would have no water, since the water pumps would not work, or natural gas would not operate without the proper electrical mechanisms. It means all service stations would be closed down, and their gasoline pumps, which operate by electricity, would not work. Then the hoodlum element, duped by the Communist Party, would start large fires all over the area, just like they did in Watts. This would keep the firemen and police busy. The Molotov cocktail, so cheaply made, it can be made for less than 5 cents, can do millions and millions of dollars worth of damage. Over $40 million worth of buildings were burned up in South Los Angeles during their insurrection. They can also make very cheaply the lye and acid bombs by drilling a hole in the end of light bulbs. They are taught how to put wooden matches in air conditioning mechanisms in order to cause explosives. Surveys made in America by reputable sources such as our National Civilian Defense Program and also the RAND Corporation showed that in excess of 90% of our people in America would be caught absolutely unprepared if revolution were to hit. May I suggest some things that you can do to prepare for revolution? First of all, every home ought to have means of artificial lighting. The best is candles. They're inexpensive. You can buy several for a few cents. The candles, when once melted, can be remolded by only adding a piece of string, and you can have light almost indefinitely. You need light because if the revolution hits at nighttime, the family would panic, especially if there was children, if there was no light. Secondly, if the revolution were to hit in the wintertime, your heat most likely would go off, and families, tens of thousands of them, could freeze to death. However, if you have a candle or several candles, the family could get in a bathroom and close the door, and one or two candles would keep life in the body. Food can be warmed and heated, and water can be brought to a slow boil by being placed over a candle. But if you have your little transistor radio, you can tune to the radio stations and get instruction from your government that might be the means of the saving of your life. Every home ought to have a supply of water. Now this can easily be obtained. Of course, tap water cannot be kept over long periods of time as it will ruin. But you can get distilled water very inexpensively, store it in your basement if you have a basement, or some other safe place. These plastic gallon jugs that Clorox and chlorines come in, these make ideal water storage compartments. Since they're plastic, they will not break as easily as glass. Have you ever heard your children cry for a drink of water and not be able to give it to them? You ought to think about it, and then I believe you'll make adequate preparation by having a supply of water in your home.
Alrighty, so there's a few snippets of it. I'm not going to play everything. I actually played a little bit more than I was going to. If you are truly interested in hearing the entire hour, comment down below, and if I get enough people, I will sit here and record the entire thing and upload it. But until then, I'm Anarka Akaza. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll get back to regular programming. It's just, this is, like I said, a one-of-a-kind record, and I wanted to share it with you all. Ciao.